Andy Griffiths is probably most famous for his crazy stories about exploding bums. I know, you know what I mean. But his Treehouse series continues to expand. There's more and more stories put on that treehouse, and he's here to tell us more about his latest book. Andy Griffiths, good morning. Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you.
And
Thank you.
65 stories we're at now in this the Treehouse of the Imagination, this great literary playhouse for kids who are encouraged to read by your books.
Yeah, well, this one is for the parents who have been at many of the events and have said, do you have a permit for this treehouse? they're concerned about the legalities. And,
of going so high?
Yeah.
God, they're nervous Nellies, aren't they?
They sure are. So I thought we'll confront this head on.
Yep.
And we have, and of course Terry, my co-conspirator and illustrator, forgot to get the permit.
Well.
We have a visit from Inspector Bubble Wrap, who declares it ready to be condemned, and we have to deal with that problem.
Is Inspector Bubble Wrap accompanied by Inspector Helicopter? As in helicopter parent?
No, he actually he has a transforming experience as a result of his time in the treehouse, and realises there's a lot of fun in being dangerous and disregarding an over-concern with safety.
Which is what kids love. For the uninitiated, tell us about your tree houses. They're quite magical places, different levels, catering for different tastes and imaginations.
Yeah, well, I grew up with, the great Enid Blyton and Fired by the Faraway Tree. I loved the idea you were up in a tree, magical possibilities, but a little
Other
bit
worlds.
of danger.
Yeah.
There's always got to be this edge. And so the kids had been writing to Terry and I saying, do you like each other? Are you friends? And I go, yeah, of course we are. Well, how come we draw you being squashed by a piano on page 203 of Just Stupid? And so I thought, we can play with this. And we made up a story that we live in a treehouse together, and there's bowling alleys, tank full of man-eating sharks. And that's why we fail to get the books done on time, because there's so much distraction, which is actually true in real life.
What's lovely about the books, from Exploding Bums all the way through, is that sense of danger that you talk about, but also, and we should be frank about this, that lovely, quite instinctive sense of violence that kids can have. They like things that fall and squash and go kaplunk. They like things that fall out and fall over, and people have things happen to them and they blow up. And I think there's an aspect of parenting where we're, trying to kind of erase that away.
Well, yeah, and parents' job is to kind of keep control, but the kid can't help but wonder and play and be fascinated by, the topsy-turviness. And books offer us a wonderful place in the imagination to experience what happens when you're not sensible, what happens when things go out of control. And you can, I think the kids who come to my signings and read the books are some of the nicest kids you'll ever meet, because I think they're getting all the antisocial stuff out in their imaginations, which is fantastic.
You mentioned your co-conspirator, Terry Denton, one of this country's best illustrators, and we're seeing some of his fine work there. You've been with Terry all the way through, Andy?
Yeah, he illustrated an educational textbook for me way back in 1993 and gave me a lovely backhanded compliment. He said, you should publish a book of trade fiction, because people are publishing much worse stuff than what you're writing.
Backhanded compliment, right?
I want to do that, but no one will give me a chance, because I was writing this sort of goon show, Monty Python style absurdity, and none of the publishers could understand what was going on. So he said, tell them I'll illustrate what you do.
There he is.
There's Terry there.
And he is just the most wonderful, offbeat, madcap stream of consciousness illustrator. And it's a bit like, the Goon Show, how they used to ask for impossible sound effects.
Yes.
The sound of a fish being slapped by a wet lettuce leaf or something. I can do the same with Terry, and he rises to the challenge every time.
Can I ask you the words and pictures question? Which comes first?
With the Treehouse books, it's the culmination of 20 years where we are absolutely unable to work out the answer to that question. We sit in a room and I
sit together?
Yeah,
yep.
I suggest something, he draws it, that gives me more fuel. He often draws what I ask him to do, but in a way I didn't expect, which then gives me a huge amount of clue where to go next.
So it's a true real-time collaboration.
Yeah, yeah. And my wife Jill comes in. She's the voice of reason. She's an editor, and she'll tell us when we're gone too far down the rabbit hole. And she's like, "You may be amusing yourselves here, but you know, can I have something as the general reader, a representative?" But she's a great rhymer, so. Inspector Bubble Wrap does his safety report all in rhyme because it helps to pass the time.
I see what you did there.
So the treehouse blends everything we've done over 20 years. There's a little bit of, you know, silly, gross-out humour, but there's a lot of charm. So I feel like I've grown up just a little bit since the bum days. Yeah,
not too much. Hopefully. No, we don't want that.
Nowadays,
I like
Terry will put his underpants in the shark tank to wash them, and the sharks will eat them and get sick. But then we move on, you know. There's other things going on.
Oh, I love it. Speaking on behalf of many parents, my children over the years have voraciously consumed your books, including the Treehouse series. So for Awaiting Nation, there'll be another Treehouse book sometime soon.
We're already building the 78-story
Treehouse.
Yes, that'll be next year's book.
Matt, you better get that permit, or these parents will make your life hard.
Well, this book we actually do.
You do, indeed.
Well,
right, okay.
Spoiler.
Come on.
Kids are at school,
fun.
that's right.
The fun along the way.
Really nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Andy. Good stuff.
Nice to know that the Treehouse keeps growing.